Hello everyone, and thanks for watching another one of my videos. I was recently watching the epic blockbuster film Independence Day Resurgence, and like so many epic summer films in recent years, I not only saw the appearance of famous Chinese actors and numerous spoken lines in Chinese language, but I almost laughed when I saw them video chatting using QQ. It happens to be the very software I use. It's one of the most popular chat and messenger softwares here. The company that makes it, called Tencent, Tianjin in Chinese, they were also co-producers on the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle film, along with other huge Chinese conglomerates like Alibaba and so on. And it's like it's getting to the point where you can't make a movie with a 150 plus or $200 million budget without giving serious consideration to the Chinese market. Some of these movies are actually making more money at the Chinese box office than they are in the US domestic box office. And some movies have actually been saved by the Chinese box office figures when they almost flopped on the US domestic side. So now you have a number of movies that are really, and you see it even in Marvel movies like Iron Man 3 and so on, you're seeing this heavy catering to the Chinese for two reasons. One, to get past Chinese censors. See, when you make an American movie, the Chinese only allow something like 34 foreign films in their box office every year. And that doesn't mean 34 Hollywood films. It means 34 foreign films. It could be Indian films, Japanese films, and so on. So you have a small window to get your film in there. But when you partner with, Shanghai Film Group or China Film Group or any of these companies and do a co-production, it no longer counts as a foreign film. So Warcraft was another film with heavy Chinese investment. This was understandable because Warcraft is huge here. Even my wife used to play it. And so, of course, it makes sense that they probably could do much better here. I'm sure Warcraft is still big in the West and in the US, but it is beyond huge here, and we have way more people. So it makes sense to have heavy Chinese investment in that kind of film. But once you do that co-production, like the Kung Fu Panda, I don't know about the first one, but the 2 and 3, then they become co-productions. They count as Chinese films. You don't have to worry about getting past the limit of how many foreign films can be allowed in the market here. And that's money they absolutely have to have access to, because to make your money back, and I'm sure you've heard it said, that if you spend 150 million to make a movie, you also have to spend as much or more on marketing. So movies, when you look at that budget, you have to assume that they have to make double and sometimes triple that money back before they are truly profitable. And even with the numbers, it's quite possible that Independence Day Resurgence has maybe skated by and may not be profitable. But it's understandable how necessary the Chinese market is. As China's economy grows, the number of opportunities here, not just in movies, but games, and I believe we are going to see some crossover happening in games in the near future. It's just the more opportunities are happening. People are getting richer here is what's happening. And more people, as they get rich, they're going to buy cars, because you see most of like General Motors, Ford, they have made more money in China in the last few years than they have in the domestic U.S. market. They're selling more cars here in China than in their own market. And it's the same for companies like Apple with the iPhones and iPads. All of these companies are getting access to the 1.3 or more, because some people say the figure reporting is off on the population, 1.3, 1.4 billion people that are here that are coming up with more money and able to go out and purchase phones and cars and these things and go see movies. And seeing a movie in IMAX is not cheap. I don't remember the price, but it's something like $15 or more to maybe more. Now, that may be less than what it costs in the US. I don't remember the costs in the US, but that's a lot here to say. That's like 100 Chinese yuan. That's a lot of money for anyone. But people are paying it, and people are going to see these movies, and these movies are making a lot of money here in China. But let's also keep in mind, if you go back to the 1980s, you may remember that there were films like Blade Runner and RoboCop 3 that at that time, the Japanese economy was coming up, and Japan was coming into America, and they bought Columbia and TriStar, and Sony Pictures popped up. They bought many of the biggest U.S. hotels. And everybody saw in the world of science fiction a Japanese run future. And you see it in movies like Blade Runner, where they mix Japanese in their local dialect, and it sounds like the Japanese are taking over, and the projections of the future show the world pretty much run by the Japanese. And then their economy tanked in the early 90s and never recovered. I mean, I was there. I was actually there when the economic bubble burst and everything went down the tubes, which is why, probably at least one of the reasons why I didn't make any of the success I was trying to do when I was there at the time. And so there you have it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go the way that Joss Whedon, who was probably one of the first to get on that bandwagon back in Firefly, predicted a Chinese run future. It may or may not happen. We don't know. But the lesson we can see from what happened with Japan when they came into power through their technology and their cars and those things throughout the 80s, and it looked like they were going to be set to become the world's #1 economy, and look what happened. So the same thing may happen. Right now, we see that it is a necessity for Hollywood. If they want to continue spending that kind of money to make movies, then they got to make sure that China likes those movies. Otherwise, a new model is going to be necessary. Now, what does any of this have to do with independent animation? I'll make another video when I figure that out.